It begins with silence. A vast desert plain stretching endlessly beneath the watch of a pale and weightless moon. The air is still, holding its breath, as if waiting for someone to notice what lingers here. Beneath the sand, half buried and fading, lie the impressions of steps. Not ours, not quite. They press gently into the earth, as though time itself tried to carry them away, and yet they remain. It is said that the ground remembers more than the mind does. That beneath layers of soil and stone, beneath centuries of dust and drifting winds, lie the first imprints of lives long forgotten. They are not recorded in any chronicle, not named in any king's lineage, not inscribed on temple walls. Yet here they are, the first footprints beneath the dust, calling us softly into their mystery. We follow them, slowly, carefully, as though trespassing into a dream not meant for us. The prints wind across a starlit path, moving toward a riverbed that has long since dried. The earth cracks there, curling like ancient parchment, carrying within its fissures the memory of waters that once gave life. Some say the river itself was a witness, carrying away the voices of those who walked its banks before vanishing into silence. Whispers tell us of ages before our own, cycles of civilizations rising and fading, as fleeting as the tide. Myths speak of golden eras drowned in flood, of worlds rebuilt after fire, of beings who shaped stone with breath alone, leaving behind no bones, no names, only faint reminders that they were here. Beneath the desert's hush, these stories do not sound like fables. They sound like memory. We walk deeper into this landscape, where the night sky spreads itself wide and the stars burn like watchful eyes. The constellations themselves seem older, as if they once looked down upon others who gazed upward in wonder, asking the same questions we ask now. Who are we, and how long have we been? Along the path, half-covered stones appear, not scattered by chance, but aligned, as though part of some forgotten road. Their surfaces are marked with faint spirals, carvings worn so thin that they appear almost like shadows of themselves. They are not ours, not quite. The patterns speak of another hand, another vision of the world, one erased but never entirely gone. It is said such symbols are doorways, guiding those who linger in silence to glimpse what lies beneath the veil of history. We pause here. Imagine the ones who carved them, their hands pressing against stone under moonlight, their breath weaving meaning into spirals and echoes. Did they know their world would vanish? Did they carve these symbols as warnings or as gifts? Or perhaps as prayers to the earth itself, a plea that something might endure when memory failed? The silence deepens. Dust swirls like smoke in the night air, and for a moment it feels as though voices rise with it, gentle, broken voices, speaking in a language older than any we know. Words that carry the rhythm of rivers, the pulse of mountains, the breath of fire and rain. They are gone before we understand them, leaving only the echo of what might have been. It is here that myths return to us, stories scattered across cultures and time, yet all whispering of the same forgotten truth. In Sumer, they spoke of ages before kings, when unknown beings guided the rivers. In Greece, they remembered golden men of a vanished age, swallowed by flood. In India, the Mahabharata spoke of cycles, worlds destroyed and reborn, leaving only fragments to remind us. And in the Americas, the elders spoke of peoples who walked before, who carved the stones, and then disappeared into the earth. These are not the tales of one place or one people. They are fragments of a memory buried deep within us all, surfacing like dreams at the edge of sleep. Perhaps they are not myths at all, but echoes of a truth the earth itself refuses to let us forget. We follow the footprints further. They lead us toward a cliffside, where the rock face rises dark against the moonlight. At its base there is an opening, not a cave, but a doorway of stone. The shape is unmistakable, carved with intention, though time has weathered its edges to softness. Within, the air is cooler, stiller. The walls glisten faintly with mineral light, as though the rock itself once carried fire. Here, in this chamber beneath the desert, more carvings await. They are crude yet deliberate. Spirals, stars, flowing lines that seem to echo the paths of rivers or constellations. Some believe such symbols were left by those who came before us, beings who knew cycles of time we cannot yet imagine. Others say they were carved by our earliest ancestors, carrying fragments of knowledge whispered to them in dreams. Whatever the truth, the silence within the chamber feels holy, as though it guards a secret not meant for waking hours. We linger in this space, breathing its stillness. The air tastes of dust, of stone, of centuries pressing down like invisible hands. A candle, if lit here, would not flicker, for there is no wind, only the deep weight of the earth. In such silence the mind drifts into visions. We see the ones who walked before us, their shapes indistinct, their faces veiled by time. They leave no names. They leave no answers. Only the simple imprint of their presence. It is said that civilizations rise like waves, cresting toward brilliance before dissolving into foam. That the earth has seen not one dawn but many. And that we, who now stand tall and certain, may only be another tide upon the same eternal shore. The footprints remind us of this, delicate marks pressed into soil, destined to fade, yet somehow persisting across eons. As we turn to leave, the path stretches back across the desert, the stars shimmering above like endless witnesses. The wind has begun to rise, carrying sand across the prints. One by one they soften, blur, and disappear. It is as though the earth, having allowed us a glimpse, now closes her book again, sealing the pages in silence. Were we truly the first? Or are we merely the latest dreamers beneath these same stars, repeating stories as old as the dust? No answer comes. Only the soft hush of wind, the shifting of grains, the sigh of the desert returning to sleep. And then at last we see it, the final mark, a single footprint at the edge of the sand. The wind curls around it, smoothing its edges, folding it gently back into the earth. With each moment it fades until nothing remains. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps it was only a reminder, a fleeting whisper meant to guide us into wonder, before dissolving back into silence. And so the desert breathes again. The stars wheel overhead. The footprints are gone. All that remains is stillness, and the quiet certainty that something walked here before us and will again. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And tonight, beneath the veil of sleep, the earth has spoken. It begins with a doorway, a dark opening in the side of a cliff, veiled by silence, framed by stone. The desert night is cool, and the moon casts its silver breath across the entrance. From afar it seems like nothing more than a hollow in the rock. But as you step closer, the air changes. It carries a hush, as though the cliff itself were holding its breath, waiting for you to enter. It is said that in forgotten ages, knowledge was not written in ink, nor bound in parchment, but carved into stone, hidden deep in chambers, meant only for the patient and the reverent. Here before us lies one such place, a library not of books but of shadows and starlight. Crossing the threshold, the world outside disappears. The sound of the wind, the whisper of sand, all of it falls away, replaced by a heavy quiet that presses gently against the skin. The walls rise high, their surfaces smooth in some places, crumbled in others as if touched by centuries of unseen hands. Thin cracks in the ceiling allow the moonlight to seep in like pale ribbons, illuminating fragments of what lies within. We move deeper. The chamber opens into long corridors, each lined with stone tablets and walls inscribed with marks too faint to understand. At first glance they seem like scratches, the idle work of time. But linger a little longer and patterns begin to emerge. Spirals, stars, lines that flow like rivers or constellations. They whisper of meaning, though the meaning remains veiled. It is said that these inscriptions belong to no language we know, that they come from a time before language as we understand it, when symbols were not letters, but living breaths of thought, shapes meant to echo through silence, carrying truths without words. Perhaps these marks were never meant to be read, only felt like music played too softly to hear, but strong enough to stir the soul. We pass beneath archways carved into the cliff itself. Each doorway feels less like an entrance and more like a passage into another dream. The further we go, the softer the air becomes, until even our footsteps seem swallowed by the shadows. Here every corner holds a question. Who carved these words into stone? For whom were they written? And why across all the centuries do they remain untouched, unclaimed, unread? Some believe this library belongs to civilizations erased from memory. The myths of Atlantis come to mind, a people said to have reached heights of wisdom before being swallowed by the sea. Others recall the hymns of the Vedas, whispering of ages long before our own, when gods and mortals walked together beneath the same stars. In Mesopotamia, it was said that kings learned from tablets not of clay but of light. And in fragments across the earth, the same story repeats. knowledge scattered like broken pages hidden within stone, waiting for no one. Imagine for a moment that all the world's forgotten voices are gathered here, that each carving is a fragment of memory, each symbol a breath carried across ages. Together they form a manuscript too vast to be read in one lifetime, a library that belongs not to us, but to time itself. We walk slower now. The chamber narrows into a hall lit only by slivers of moonlight. Dust floats in the air, each mote shimmering as though it carries its own secret. On the walls, faint inscriptions glow where the light touches them. For an instant, it feels as though the stone itself is alive, breathing quietly in the silence. Whispers tell us that such places were not meant for all, that only those who came in reverence, in stillness, could glimpse the truth within. Perhaps the library is not hiding its secrets. Perhaps it is waiting for us to still our minds enough to hear them. Knowledge, like starlight, is patient. It does not shout. It waits, shining silently until the eyes adjust. Here in the deepest hall lies an altar of stone. Upon it rests a tablet blank to the eye. No inscription, no symbol, only the smoothness of untouched rock. Yet as the moonlight falls upon it, a faint shimmer emerges. Lines so delicate they seem woven from shadow itself. They appear, then fade, like memory slipping through the fingers. What is written here? A history erased? A warning? Or perhaps nothing at all? Only silence carved into stone, reminding us that not all knowledge must be spoken. Some truths exist to be felt, like the weight of the night sky pressing gently upon the soul. It is said that when you stare long enough into silence, silence begins to speak. Perhaps that is the lesson of this place. Not the recovery of forgotten words, not the solving of mysteries, but the acceptance that some knowledge is too vast for the mind, too sacred for the tongue. We close our eyes. The air is heavy but not oppressive. It is tender, as though the stones themselves are watching over us, keeping their secrets while offering their presence. In that presence, we feel the span of centuries, the breath of countless lives rising and fading like the tide. The library does not promise answers. It offers something quieter, the comfort of knowing that mystery endures. As we step back toward the entrance, the shadows shift. The inscriptions fade into the walls once more, retreating into silence. Dust rises with each step, swirling in the pale shafts of moonlight, like smoke from a candle extinguished. At last, we return to the threshold. The desert night awaits, vast and still, the stars burning overhead like eternal lamps. We turn once more toward the opening in the cliff, but already it looks different, as though the earth itself has closed the book we were allowed for a moment to glimpse. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps it is not a library for us, but for the stars, for the winds, for the silence that listens when we are gone, and yet the memory lingers. The weight of stone, the shimmer of inscriptions, the faint glow of a tablet touched by moonlight. It lingers like the echo of a voice heard in dream, one we cannot quite recall upon waking. The night deepens. The wind returns, carrying the scent of dust and stone. The stars remain above, watching, patient as always. Somewhere behind the cliff, the library sleeps again, its secrets unread, eternal. And as we drift toward sleep, we carry with us its presence, the sense that knowledge does not always live in words, but in silence, in waiting, in the shadows between starlight. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And tonight, in the hush of the desert night, we have heard them. It begins with the sound of water, a tide rolling gently against the shore, pulling grains of sand back into the deep. The rhythm is soft, almost like breathing. It is steady, eternal, as though the ocean itself has always been whispering to those who pause to listen. Now imagine stepping closer, your feet sinking into the cool sand, your eyes fixed on the horizon where the sea meets the moonlight. The waves shimmer silver, carrying with them a secret that feels older than memory. Somewhere beneath that calm, beneath the endless blue, lie shadows of cities no map remembers. It is said that the sea holds more history than the land, that every tide carries fragments of the past, broken pottery, shattered stone, the dust of forgotten temples dissolved into salt. The waters cradle stories too heavy for the shore, stories hidden in silence, drowned but never erased. Tonight we follow those whispers. We drift into the deep, leaving the world of air behind, descending slowly into a realm where light bends like glass, and everything moves with the pulse of the tide. The deeper we go, the quieter it becomes. The sea muffles sound, softening every movement, until only our heartbeat seems to echo in the silence. And then, The shapes begin to emerge. Beneath the rippling surface, stone gates rise from the sand. Columns stretch upward, leaning like weary giants. Streets appear, paved but broken, lined with walls no longer whole. Coral clings to them like ivy, weaving bright blossoms of color into ruins long gray with age. Fish drift through doorways, moving where footsteps once did. It is not imagination. Entire cities sleep beneath the ocean. In the waters off India's coast near Dwarka, divers discovered stone walls and streets, their patterns unmistakably human. In the blue silence of the Mediterranean near Alexandria, the remains of palaces lie scattered, statues still gazing upward toward the light they no longer see. In Japan's Yonaguni, terraces of stone rise like a stepped pyramid, their sharp edges softened by centuries of waves. Some believe they are natural formations, others feel certain they are the bones of a sunken city. And beyond these there are the myths, the voices carried by generations like offerings to the sea. Atlantis, the city of light, swallowed in a single night. Lemuria, the great land said to stretch across the Indian Ocean, vanished in fire and flood. From Polynesia to South America, from Africa to the far islands of the north, there are stories of worlds drowned by rising waters, civilizations that vanished not in war, but in silence. Perhaps these myths are no myths at all. Perhaps they are memories blurred by time, of cities that stood where the ocean now breathes. We drift slowly through the ruins. The water is cool, weightless. The stones below us are etched with patterns too worn to understand. Spirals, circles, shapes that echo constellations. Statues tilt their faces upward, their eyes fixed eternally on a sun they will never see again. It feels almost as though they are waiting, their silence a prayer whispered into the tide. Some believe these ruins belong to us, to early civilizations erased by flood, their memories swallowed by rising seas at the end of the last ice age. Others whisper that they may not have been ours at all, that perhaps the ocean cradles the remnants of beings who came before us, whose stories have dissolved into the salt of centuries. It is said that water remembers, that every drop that touches our skin has passed through rivers, through clouds, through the veins of earth itself. If this is true, then the ocean holds within it the breath of forgotten worlds, the dust of drowned cities, the songs of those who once stood where we now float. As we glide through this underwater silence, the emotional arc shifts. At first, curiosity pulls us forward, eager to see what lies hidden. Then awe takes its place, awe at the vastness of what remains unseen, awe at the patience of the ocean, guarding secrets with the gentleness of waves. But slowly, the awe turns tender, edged with melancholy. For in these ruins there is also loss. A column crumbled, a stairway buried, a doorway half buried in sand. Each piece whispers of lives once lived, footsteps echoing down those avenues, voices calling across those courtyards, rituals held in temples now home only to coral. We are reminded that what we see is not just stone but memory. Memory of people who dreamed, who built, who loved beneath the same stars we see above. Perhaps they watched the sea rise slowly, year after year, helpless to stop its patient tide. Perhaps they fled, carrying only fragments of their world with them, their stories scattered like seeds across the earth. Or perhaps they remained, their final breaths carried into the ocean, their voices woven forever into the waves. Were these cities abandoned? Or simply forgotten? The water grows darker now. Moonlight no longer reaches this depth, and everything is bathed in twilight blue. The ruins feel endless, a whole world resting in silence, a whole history erased from maps. And yet the sea does not grieve. It holds them gently, wrapping each stone, each column, each stair in its eternal embrace. It is said that the ocean is not a grave, but a cradle, that it does not destroy but transforms. What sinks beneath its waves does not vanish. It changes, dissolves, becomes part of something greater. Perhaps these cities are not gone but reborn, their dust scattered into the tides, their memory flowing in every wave that kisses the shore. We pause here. The silence is vast, unbroken. In it, we feel the presence of something ancient, not threatening, not sorrowful, but infinite. It is the presence of time itself, carrying all things forward, cradling them in currents beyond our reach. And then, slowly, we rise. The ruins drift away beneath us, fading into blue. The water grows lighter, brighter, until the surface shimmers once again above. We break through into moonlight, the air cool and crisp upon the skin, the waves rolling softly as though nothing waits beneath them. Yet we know now. Beneath this calm surface lies a world untold, cities unmarked by maps, histories carried not in books but in tides, lives erased from memory yet still present, silent, eternal. We stand again on the shore listening to the waves, watching the moon cast its silver veil across the sea. The question lingers like salt on the air, refusing to dissolve. Were these cities abandoned or simply forgotten by the world above? No answer comes. Only the sound of water, only the whisper of waves folding gently into sand. Perhaps it was never meant to be known. Perhaps the ocean keeps its secrets not out of malice, but out of love, guarding the silence of those who once dreamed beneath the stars. And so we leave it there, the ocean breathing softly, the ruins sleeping below, the night sky watching above. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And tonight, in the hush of waves and starlight, we have heard them. It begins with silence, not the silence of emptiness, but the kind that hums beneath the skin, the kind that belongs to places older than memory. Imagine a desert at night. The wind drifts low across the sand, carrying the scent of dust, carrying the weight of ages. Above, the stars stretch endlessly, cold and brilliant, their constellations etched like inscriptions across the sky. And there, rising from the earth, half shrouded in moonlight, are faces. Faces carved in stone, immense and unblinking. They gaze upward, as if waiting for something, as if watching the heavens for a sign only they can read. It is said that these are not merely stones, but watchers. Silent guardians that have stood longer than any book has been written, longer than any calendar has kept time. They do not move, they do not speak, and yet their presence is a language, and as a language of patience, of memory, of mystery. Somewhere far across the ocean, on an island ringed by waves, stand the Moai of Rapa Nui, the Easter Island guardians. Towering heads and shoulders, their eyes once inlaid with coral, their expressions unreadable. They are turned inward toward the land, as if protecting something unseen. Who placed them here on this lonely island? Whispers tell us that they were not meant for us, but for the sky, markers aligned with the paths of the sun. The moon, the stars, far away in Anatolia, lie circles of stone older than writing itself, Göbekli Tepe, a sanctuary carved 12,000 years ago. Pillars marked with animals, symbols, celestial forms. Some call it the first temple, others a gathering of sky watchers. The stones themselves are like scrolls, not written on parchment, but carved in permanence, their meaning veiled, their voice still echoing in silence. And in the high Andes, beneath the thin air of the mountains, walls rise with impossible precision. Blocks of stone fit together as though grown, not built, their seams so exact that even a blade of grass cannot slip between them. At Sacsayhuaman, the stones curve and interlock in spirals and waves, a geometry that feels less like construction and more like memory made solid. The people of the land speak of Viracocha, the great teacher, the one who came from the waters to guide them. Was it his memory that shaped these stones, or something even older, buried beneath the dust of ages? It is said that everywhere on earth where great stones stand, there is a story of watchers, beings who came before, who recorded, guided, or simply observed. Some call them gods, others ancestors, others still travelers from beyond the stars. Perhaps they were none of these, and perhaps they were all. The moonlight shifts and the eyes of the statues seem almost alive. They do not blink, yet we feel their gaze. They do not move, yet we sense their presence. Each watcher is more than stone. It is a breath of time, a fragment of eternity. Whispers tell us that the stones were placed as mirrors, that their faces are turned toward the heavens because they reflect what lies above. In them we see not just human effort, but human longing, a desire to reach upward, to speak with the stars. Each carving, each pillar, each wall is a prayer, an echo, a message to those who might listen. And yet when we try to read them, the words fade, the meanings dissolve like mist. These monuments do not tell us who we are. They remind us only that we do not yet know. Perhaps they were never meant to explain. Perhaps they were only meant to remind. We drift deeper into their stillness. Time slows. The stars wheel overhead, ancient patterns the watchers have followed since the first night. Their patience is immeasurable. Centuries pass like a single breath. Civilizations rise and fall around them, yet they remain. Empires crumble into dust. Languages vanish into silence, and still the watchers gaze upward. In this silence, myths emerge like echoes. Stories of giants who lifted stones with ease. Stories of gods who walked among men. Stories of beings who taught the sacred arts, who measured the heavens, who vanished when their work was done. Were these only tales, woven to explain what could not be understood? Or are the stones themselves the testimony, the enduring voice of those who left no other trace? It is said that stone remembers, that every mark, every fracture, every line carved into it is a memory it carries forever. If this is true, then the watchers are not mute. They are simply speaking a language we no longer know how to hear. As we move among them, across deserts, across islands, across mountains, we feel the same presence. A stillness that does not belong to any one land, but to the earth itself. The watchers are spread across continents, across oceans, and yet their gaze is one. They look not at us, but beyond us. Perhaps they are not guardians of land, but guardians of time. Perhaps they do not watch the living, but the stars. In their silence, they may be measuring, waiting, keeping rhythm with a music too vast for our ears, and so we stand before them, humbled. Their patience stretches beyond comprehension, their silence deeper than our words. They remind us that the earth is older than our memory, older than our questions, older even than our dreams. The night deepens. The desert cools, the mountain winds soften, the island waves retreat. Moonlight falls across the watchers, silver upon stone. Their faces glow softly in the night, as if touched by something sacred. There is no conclusion here, no final answer. The watchers do not explain themselves. They remain as they always have, silent, steadfast, unyielding. Their story is not one of endings, but of presence. Fair presence that endures, a gaze that does not fade. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps the watchers are not here to tell us their story, but to remind us of our own. And so the chapter closes as it began, in silence. The watchers stand beneath the stars, eyes lifted to the heavens, patient guardians of a story the earth has chosen not to tell. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And when we are, the watchers will still be here. The night opens like a vast and ancient book. Above, the sky stretches endlessly, scattered with constellations, each point of light a whisper of fire from unimaginable distance. Beneath this canopy, the earth lies hushed. Grass bends in silence, stones stand unmoving. And in that stillness there is the sensation that we are being watched, not by eyes, but by time itself. It is said that once, long before we carried clocks or calendars, the stars were the only measure of our lives. Their rising and setting marked not just the passing of nights, but the rhythm of harvest, the tides of rivers, the pulse of creation itself. To gaze upward was to read a script more enduring than any scroll, more eternal than any empire. And so civilizations turned their gaze skyward. They built not only homes and temples, but calendars of stone, vast observatories where the heavens were charted, where time itself was given shape. In the green fields of Britain, beneath mists and shifting clouds, circles of stone rise against the horizon. Stonehenge, weathered and crumbled, yet aligned with precision so delicate that each solstice still finds its mark. On the longest day of summer, the sun ascends through the heelstone, flooding the circle with light as though awakening a forgotten ritual. Some believe it was a temple, others a tomb, but there are those who whisper that it was something more, a clock not for hours but for ages, a calendar etched against the cosmos. Far to the south, beneath the desert sky of Nubia, lies Nabta Playa. Stones rise in patterns across an empty plain where no rivers now flow, but once water gathered in great lakes. Here, 6,000 years ago, people placed stones in alignments that traced the stars of Orion, the passage of the sun, the rhythm of the solstices. Long before the pyramids of Egypt rose, these calendars already measured the heavens. It is said they were not only maps of time, but maps of destiny. And still farther west, beyond jungles dense with breath and shadow, stands the temple of Chichen Itza. There, the great pyramid of Kukulkan rests. Twice each year on the equinox, the light of the setting sun falls upon its staircase, carving a serpent of shadow and flame that slithers down to the earth. The people gathered, watching as heaven and earth became one, a calendar not of numbers, but of living light. Some believe it marked the turning of seasons. Others believe it told of far greater cycles, the ages of the world, the breath of creation itself. It is said that such calendars were not only tools, but prayers. To carve stone into alignment with the stars was to bridge the mortal with the eternal. Each temple, each monument, was a thread woven into the fabric of the universe. As we wander through these sacred sites, the silence deepens. The stones hum with a rhythm that does not belong to any one place. The solstices, the equinoxes, the lunar cycles all seem to echo across cultures, across continents, as though an ancient knowledge whispered the same truth to different lands. Did they know something we have forgotten? Were they reading not only the heavens above, but the ages that move beneath them? Myths drift through this silence, like fragments of lost memory. The Vedic hymns of India speak of vast yugas, cycles of fire and flood, creation and dissolution, where time does not march forward, but circles like a wheel. In Mesoamerica, stories tell of suns that came before ours, 4 worlds destroyed before the 5th was born. Even in Greece, Hesiod wrote of golden ages that faded into iron, of time itself as a descending arc. Across cultures, across oceans, the whispers remain. Time is not a straight path, but a spiral. And if time is a spiral, then these calendars may not have been meant only to count. They may have been reminders, warnings, messages to those who would come after. For what better way to speak across centuries than with stone and star? Beneath the silence, one begins to feel a strange melancholy. For these monuments remain, but the voices that built them are gone. Their meanings drift like dust, their rituals dissolved into forgetting. We stand among the stones, tracing the alignments with modern eyes, and yet the deeper song eludes us. Did they mark the heavens to guide their harvests? Did they measure the solstices to honor the gods? Or did they perhaps keep watch over cycles far greater, the rise and fall of civilizations, the breath of worlds, the hidden tides of destiny? Whispers tell us that time itself feels older than we imagine, that beneath the rhythm of clocks and calendars lies a vaster pulse, one that beats not in seconds or years, but in ages. Perhaps these forgotten calendars were instruments tuned to that pulse, reminders that we are not the first to gaze at the stars, nor will we be the last. The sky above remains unchanged. The constellations still turn, the solstices still arrive, the equinox still balances day with night. But beneath this eternal canopy, our lives flicker and vanish like sparks. Civilizations rise, build their calendars of stone, then fall back into silence. Yet the stars remain, watching, patient, veiled in their own mystery. Slowly the night deepens. Clouds drift across the sky, veiling constellations, dimming the patterns that once guided kings and priests. The stones stand unmoving, their alignments precise even in darkness, though few remain who know what they measure. In this fading there is a sacred uncertainty, the sense that time itself is a riddle, one we have only just begun to hear. And so we leave the circles and temples, the calendars of stars. We carry with us not answers but echoes, whispers that remind us that time is more than days and hours, more than years and centuries. It is a breath, a cycle, a wheel turning beneath the silence. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And as the stars fade behind clouds, we are left with the hush of night. The forgotten calendars remain, steady in their silence, patient beneath the heavens. And time, vast, sacred, veiled, continues to move in spirals we cannot yet see. Beneath a canopy of leaves where shafts of sunlight pierce the forest like broken glass, lies the memory of a city. Its streets are gone, its voice is stilled, but the stones remain. Stairways rising into vines, temples half buried in roots, walls that once bore color now faded to moss. It is said that in forgotten corners of the world there are cities that dreamed, not built for conquest, not raised for power, but created as prayers made solid. Cities that once breathed in rhythm with the sky, whose temples mirrored the stars, whose plazas echoed with songs that were not only human, but sacred. Here we walk slowly as if through a dream that has not yet faded. Roots coil across the floors, branches pierce the roofs of chambers. And yet, beneath the weight of centuries, one feels a hum, a faint vibration, as though the stones themselves remember the breath of ritual. Whispers tell us of cities in Mesoamerica, where pyramids rose from the jungle, like mountains carved by human hands. Chichen Itza, Uxmal, Palenque. Their names still echo, though the voices of their people drift like mist. They built with precision, aligning temples to solstice and equinox, painting walls with colors that spoke of gods and cycles, weaving calendars into stone. It is said they were dreamers of time, mapping the heavens into their very streets. And in the forests of Cambodia, Angkor once bloomed, a city of water and stone. Canals, reservoirs and causeways spread like veins across the land, binding human life with the flow of rivers and rain. Its temples were crowned with lotus towers, their faces serene, gazing endlessly in silence. Today the jungle presses inward, the roots of strangler figs pierce the stone, yet still the city breathes, not in sound, but in presence. Beneath the silence, myths emerge. Some believe these civilizations rose too suddenly, as though knowledge itself descended upon them fully formed, mathematics, astronomy, architecture, as if gifted rather than grown. Others believe they dreamed their wisdom, pulling symbols from the stars, carrying rituals from ages older than memory, and then, as quietly as they appeared, they faded. Cities abandoned, streets empty. Dreams dissolved into vines and dust. It is said that time does not erase such places. It only buries them in silence, waiting for those who will listen. As we move through the empty courtyards, the air feels heavy, yet tender. Faded murals cling to the walls, colors blurred but still alive, like fragments of memory refusing to surrender. Doorways gape open, framed by roots. Shadows stretch across staircases that rise toward nothing. Each corner whispers, "Once here there was life." Whispers tell us of rituals that filled these plazas, dancers moving like constellations, priests chanting beneath torches, music rising in rhythms that echoed the heartbeat of the earth. We cannot hear them now, and yet the silence itself is full. It carries the shape of what once was, as if the city's dream has not ended, only softened. Some myths speak of ages lost to floods, others of droughts, of shifting skies, of cycles of fire and silence. Did these cities vanish because the heavens demanded it? Or were they always meant to fade, their wisdom planted like seeds meant to bloom elsewhere in time? As we drift deeper into the chambers, the air grows cooler. Moss clings to pillars. In the dimness, carvings emerge, spirals, faces, stars, fragments of stories that speak in a language we no longer know. We reach out, tracing the grooves with our fingers, and though we cannot understand, we feel the echo of intention. Someone carved these not as decoration, but as remembrance. It is said that cities dream even when their people are gone, that the stones hold the memory of prayers, the weight of songs, the breath of ritual. In sleep they continue to live. And so this city, swallowed by vines, has not ended. It dreams still, but in silence. The emotional arc lingers here, tender and melancholic. For what is a city but the embodiment of a dream? And what becomes of a dream when it is abandoned? Does it die, or does it continue, waiting for someone to wander among its ruins, to listen to its silence, to carry its breath into memory once more? Where memory fades, silence grows, yet in that silence there is presence. The forest does not destroy the city. It cradles it. Vines climb higher, but their embrace feels less like conquest than reclamation, as though nature is gathering the stones back into herself, sheltering them like lost children. The city sleeps. The dream continues, the night deepens. Moonlight filters through the canopy, silver upon stone, illuminating staircases that lead nowhere, temples that no longer echo with song. For a moment, the city seems alive again. Shadows flicker like torches. The air hums with distant chanting. The plazas seem filled with presence. But then the wind stirs and the illusion fades. Only vines remain, only silence, only stone. And so the journey closes, not with answers, but with stillness. Perhaps the knowledge of these cities was never meant to be kept. Perhaps their dream was only to remind us that we too are dreamers, and that our own cities may one day fall silent, our own voices fade into dust. Some believe this river may have been the Saraswati, once praised in ancient hymns of India, flowing mightier than the Ganges before it vanished into sand. Others imagine it as a lost tributary of the Nile, or a hidden companion to the Tigris and Euphrates, erased from maps when its waters ceased. Yet whether it was Saraswati or Nile, or some unnamed stream that time has hidden, the truth is simpler and more mysterious. Every vanished river is many rivers, carrying countless stories in silence. Whispers tell us that the river dried not in a single moment, but slowly, century by century, season by season. Fields cracked, harbors emptied, villages moved, and one by one, the cities built along its course fell into slumber, their steps leading nowhere, their gates opening onto air. The people dispersed, carrying with them fragments of the river's memory. Perhaps their songs live still, disguised within other tongues. Perhaps their prayers still echo each dawn, rising like mist where the river once flowed. As we drift deeper along this imagined current, we hear echoes of ritual. The splash of water poured over stone altars, the murmur of voices chanting in unison, their cadence rising and falling like waves, the sound of children laughing as they play upon the shore, the slow rhythmic beating of drums carried across the water. All these sounds have dissolved into silence now, yet the bed of the river seems to remember them. Beneath the silence one can almost hear. It is said that dreams too are like rivers. They flow for a time, shaping us, carrying us, nourishing us, and then, when their course is finished, they dissolve into the ocean of memory, leaving behind only fragments, an image, a feeling, a faint sound upon waking. The river that carried dreams away may have been a dream itself, flowing not only through land, but through the hearts of those who believed in it. At last, we reach the place where the river once touched the sea. Here the sand stretches wide and pale, gleaming beneath the moonlight. No waves roll in, no tide pulls outward, and yet in imagination we hear it, the sound of water rushing, endless and eternal. We hear the final merging, the last surrender of river into ocean, and with it, we sense the release of countless dreams carried outward, dissolved into the infinite. Beneath the silence, there is still movement, not of water but of memory, of spirit. The dry bed glows faintly beneath the stars, as if marked by the moon itself, and in that glow one understands. Though the river has vanished, it is not gone. It flows now within silence, within dust, within the unseen places where memory lingers. Perhaps it was never meant to remain. Perhaps the river carried away not only water, but the very dreams of those who built their lives upon its shores. Perhaps it returned them to the sea of beginnings, where all stories are born, where all stories dissolve, and so the chapter closes with an echo. The river is gone, yet we hear it still, a faint sound of water in the distance, imagined but undeniable. It moves through us as softly as breath, carrying us towards sleep. The bed lies empty, veiled in moonlight. The river is silent yet eternal. It has carried its dreams away, and it waits patient for us to dream again. It is said that mountains are more than stone. They are guardians of silence, keepers of memory, vessels of mystery so vast that only the earth itself could bear them. Beneath their ridges and summits, beneath the snow and the starlight, lie chambers no sun has touched in 1,000 years. Tonight we step toward such a place, a temple whispered of in myths and half-forgotten songs, hidden deep within the body of a mountain. Imagine the beginning, a gate carved in rock, half-veiled by mist. The air is cool, tinged with the scent of moss and ancient earth. Torches flicker faintly, their glow dancing across walls etched with symbols too worn to be read. It feels less like an entrance and more like a threshold between worlds, a passage into the breath of the mountain itself. It is said that temples beneath the earth were never built for ordinary worship. They were sanctuaries of knowledge, vaults of wisdom, places where silence was guarded as carefully as fire. In Tibet, some whisper of caverns where scrolls rest sealed in crystal, untouched since ages when the stars were charted as living beings. In the Andes, there are tales of hidden corridors carved beneath peaks, chambers said to hold treasures not of gold, but of memory itself. The Greeks, too, spoke of caves where oracles breathed vapors from the earth, speaking truths in voices not their own. And across the deserts of Egypt, stories linger of mountain temples carved into stone, aligned with the stars, sealed forever against the curiosity of passing centuries. We step deeper. The path narrows, the torchlight bending across jagged walls. Carvings emerge, faint but deliberate, spirals, stars, flowing lines that resemble rivers. Some symbols are sharp, etched with precision. Others are blurred, softened by time's hand. They do not speak in words but in echoes, as though the mountain itself is whispering its language through stone. The silence is not empty. It hums softly, like the deep vibration of a hidden bell. Each step seems to awaken the chamber, as if the mountain recognizes our presence. The air grows cooler yet charged, as though unseen currents move around us. Some believe these places were designed not simply as shelters, but as living instruments, that the very shape of the corridors, the angles of the stones, were meant to channel sound, to guide breath. to turn silence into sacred resonance. It is said that within such temples fire and stone were bound together. Some myths tell of eternal flames burning without oil, guarded in chambers far beneath the surface. Others speak of light that was not fire at all, but something older, a radiance drawn from the heart of the earth, or perhaps from the stars themselves. Could these have been metaphors for wisdom? Or did those who built these sanctuaries know of forces long since lost? We cannot say. We can only walk slowly, listening, letting the silence speak. In forgotten corners of the Andes, travelers still tell of caves sealed with slabs too heavy for 1,000 men. In Tibet, lamas speak softly of Shambhala, a hidden kingdom, guarded not by armies but by mountains where only the worthy may pass. And in the deserts of Arabia, there are whispers of lost vaults, chambers said to hold maps of vanished lands, knowledge too sacred or too dangerous to reveal. What is guarded here? What is so vast, so fragile, that stone, earth, and silence were chosen as its guardians? Some believe it was wisdom itself, teachings of cycles of time, of worlds that rose and fell long before our own. Others imagine tools, objects, or artifacts that could alter the very fabric of what we know. And still others say the treasure is not knowledge at all, but stillness, a reminder that the deepest truths are those unspoken, dwelling forever in silence. The deeper we go, the more the mountain feels alive. The air grows thick, yet strangely calm, like the hush within a sanctuary. The torchlight flickers against carvings of figures seated in meditation, their eyes closed, their hands folded as if holding breath. Between them are stars, circles, spirals, constellations sketched in stone. It is as though those who carved this place were not simply building walls, but weaving together earth and sky, silence and cosmos, stone and breath. We pause in a vast chamber. The ceiling arches high above, disappearing into shadow. Pillars rise like trunks of ancient trees, their surfaces smooth and gleaming. In the center lies a stone altar, worn but still marked by faint engravings of suns and moons. Around it the silence deepens, so profound it feels like eternity itself. Here one senses the weight of centuries, the breath of those who once knelt upon this very stone. It is said that some temples were sealed not to protect treasure from us, but to protect us from treasure. That wisdom, like fire, can warm or burn. That some knowledge is not meant to be opened until humanity has grown into its silence. Perhaps these chambers beneath mountains are not forgotten at all, but waiting for a time when the echoes will be heard, when the symbols will be read, when the silence itself will be understood as the teaching. We listen. The mountain breathes. The silence stretches outward, deep as the ocean, vast as the sky. And in that silence, one feels the faint impression of countless voices, not loud, not clear, but present, like a chorus buried within stone. They do not tell us answers. They do not offer revelation. They simply remain, echoing in the stillness, like stars unseen by day, waiting for night to reveal them. The journey softens. The torches grow dim. The path narrows again, winding upward, and as we ascend, it is as though the temple recedes behind us, folding itself once more into secrecy. The chambers remain untouched, sealed not by stone alone, but by silence. The knowledge sleeps still, veiled by the mountain's breath. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps the true temple is not the stone chamber, but the silence it awakens within us. A silence vast, eternal, unbroken, carrying us deeper than words could ever reach. And so the image lingers, a temple beneath the mountain, untouched by time, lit only by the memory of flame. Its doors remain closed, its echoes remain unheard, yet in the stillness of night, beneath the gaze of stars, we sense it, waiting, breathing, patient as eternity. The temple does not speak. The mountain does not answer, and yet beneath the silence we know, some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. At the edge of memory, where silence deepens into mystery, there lingers a veil. It is not woven of fabric nor of smoke, but of echoes, voices that once filled the air, now faded, dissolved into dust and time. If one listens closely, in the still hours between waking and sleep, one might almost hear them, faint syllables brushing the ear, fragments of prayers and songs in languages long since erased. It is said that every word ever spoken leaves an imprint upon the world. Some believe the breath carries memory, that air itself remembers, And so the voices of forgotten civilizations may not be gone, only veiled, hushed, waiting in the folds of silence. Tonight we walk into that veil. We move slowly, as if carrying a lantern into a chamber of shadows, careful not to disturb what rests within. The invitation begins with sound. Not music, not noise, but the suggestion of a murmur. A chant rising from a riverbank long ago. A mother's lullaby whispered to a child beneath a reed roof. The solemn recitation of words carved on clay tablets, now cracked and crumbled in desert sands. These sounds once wove the fabric of daily life, and yet their threads are frayed, unraveling, almost forgotten. It is said the first voices were like bird song, flowing with the breath of the earth. Long before written symbols, people spoke to one another in patterns of sound that carried not only meaning, but rhythm, vibration, a pulse of the soul. Those languages now vanished were more than communication. They were ceremony. Every phrase a small offering to the world. Whispers tell us of tongues erased before our own began. Consider Sumer, where words pressed into wet clay became the first recorded echoes of human thought. The inscriptions survive, but the voices that carried them, the tones and cadences, are gone. The ancient Harappans left behind script still undeciphered, symbols on stone and seal, fragments of a language whose breath no longer touches the world. In forgotten corners of Anatolia, the Hittites once prayed to storm gods, their words fierce as thunder. Now only fragments remain, and somewhere in the silence of time, countless other voices have slipped beyond remembrance, leaving nothing but faint shadows upon bone. Pottery or song, we wander deeper into this mystery, into a vast hall of memory where every language once lived. Imagine walking across a stone courtyard beneath moonlight. Each footstep stirs echoes. You hear syllables you do not know, strange, musical, layered like the notes of a flute. Perhaps they were once greetings, blessings, or declarations of love. Perhaps they were names spoken with reverence, now erased from human tongue. And yet, though we cannot understand them, they stir something ancient within us, a recognition that words need not be known to be felt. Some voices, it is said, are carried by lullabies. A mother in ancient Egypt hums softly as she rocks her child. Her melody is simple, rising and falling like the Nile. She never writes it down, never needs to, but it drifts into night, into silence, into the fabric of the world. Thousands of years later, when we close our eyes and listen to the hush of wind, perhaps some thread of that lullaby still weaves through the air. In the Andes, too, there were songs sung to the mountains, prayers offered with flutes of bone and reed. Their syllables have vanished, but the mountains remain, their summits still echoing with whispers at dusk. Beneath the silence, something continues, as though the earth itself remembers what human voices have forgotten. Symbols remain as fragments, like shells upon a shore. On clay, on stone, on bone, markings whisper of languages that once filled the air, a spiral carved into rock, a line of symbols etched onto a tablet, a fragment of verse recorded by scribes who never knew that one day their words would be unreadable. These fragments are not voices themselves, but footprints of voices, silent reminders of sound. It is said that voices rise most clearly beneath the moon, for the moon has always been companion to language, listening to lovers speaking softly in the night, to chants rising from altars, to cries of grief carried across battlefields. If the air holds memory, then surely the moon has gathered countless voices upon its silver gaze. Perhaps when its light falls on forgotten ruins, it stirs those sounds once more, carrying them faintly into the ears of those willing to listen. We move now through the veil itself, stepping deeper into reverence. Close your eyes and imagine a field where no one walks, where only wind moves across tall grass. Beneath that wind, hidden in its flow, you hear a cadence, a pulse, a word you cannot understand. Is it a prayer? Is it a story? You cannot know, but it feels familiar, like something you once heard in a dream long ago, where memory fades, silence blooms. And yet the silence is not empty. It is filled with all that was spoken and forgotten. Every argument resolved, every lullaby hushed, every vow whispered between two hearts now dust. The voices linger still, not in the form we knew them, but as a subtle resonance, a quiet vibration that rests just beneath the threshold of hearing. It is said that some words never die. They spiral through the breath of the world, carried from one generation to the next, changing shape, changing tone, but never fully erased. The names of rivers, for instance, often echo voices older than nations. The Indus, the Nile, the Euphrates, beneath these names lie older sounds. Ancient syllables once spoken by tongues long dissolved, still carried forward in altered form. Even when a language vanishes, it leaves traces, faint echoes like dust drifting in a sunbeam. Perhaps this is the nature of the veil, not loss, but transformation. The voices have not ended. They have become part of silence itself. They wait beyond the edge of hearing, beyond the edge of memory woven into the very breath of the world. The journey softens. We have listened as deeply as we can. We have walked through clay tablets, through bone inscriptions, through the silent courtyards of forgotten civilizations. We have heard lullabies without words, prayers without meaning, syllables without translation. And in each we have felt the presence of something eternal, the human need to speak, to sing, to name, to dream aloud. Now we return to the veil. It shimmers at the boundary of waking and sleep, a thin silver fabric woven of echoes. We cannot lift it, cannot pass through it, but we can listen. And as we listen, we realize the voices are not gone. They are still here, not as sound but as presence. They dwell in silence, waiting for the moment when someone, somewhere, will be ready to hear. Perhaps it was never meant to be understood. Perhaps these voices are not lost at all, but hidden, waiting in lullabies sung in dreams, in whispers carried by the wind, in the hush between heartbeats. And so the image closes, a veil at the edge of memory. A chorus of voices beneath silence, a language not forgotten but waiting, carried forever in the breath of the world. Some voices, it is said, only echo when we are ready to listen. It begins with night. The horizon has darkened. The air cooled and silence spreads like a veil across the earth. Above, the first stars appear, faint then brighter, until the sky is filled with 1,000 lights, scattered like embers upon an endless black sea. It is said the stars have watched us longer than any stone, longer than any scroll or story. They do not crumble, do not fade, do not wither as empires do. They remain, fixed above, witnesses to all that has been lived and forgotten. Beneath their silver gaze, countless civilizations have risen, spoken, dreamed, and fallen. And still the stars burn on, remembering what we do not. Perhaps the sky itself is the oldest library. A library without walls, without doors, without fire to consume it. A library written in light, eternal and unbound, carrying the stories of Earth in silence. Every age has turned its eyes upward, searching for meaning among the constellations, finding in those patient lights the echoes of creation, destruction, and rebirth. Tonight, we step beneath that canopy. We move slowly, as though walking into a temple without walls. Our heads tilt upward. Our breath softens. We listen, for even in silence the stars speak. In forgotten corners of the earth, it is told that the stars were once gods. The people of Egypt believed that the soul of Osiris, lord of the afterlife, shone as Orion, eternal, guiding the dead through the night sky. They aligned the pyramids with his belt, 3 stars shining above desert sands, a celestial mirror of the tombs below. Each stone was not just weight and dust, but a marker of the heavens. To look upon the pyramids was to look into the sky. To lie within them was to rest inside a constellation. The Sumerians, too, cast their gaze upward. Their ziggurats rose in steps, not only to reach toward the gods, but to mirror the layered heavens themselves. They read in the stars the movements of fate, believing that every empire, every birth, every harvest was written in those shifting lights. The stars for them were scrolls, celestial records of destiny, and the priests were readers of that silent script. In the Andes, long after the voices of Sumer and Egypt had quieted, another people found the sky not only in the stars, but in the darkness between them. The Inca saw animals traced in the black rivers of the Milky Way, the serpent, the fox, the llama, spirits born not of light, but of shadow. They knew that the heavens held not only brilliance, but mystery in the spaces where nothing seemed to shine. To them the void was alive. It is said that all these peoples, though distant in time and space, gazed upon the same sky. Different tongues, different myths, different prayers, yet always the same stars above. The same lights burning then as they burn tonight. The stars do not move quickly, yet they move enough to mark time. The slow procession of constellations guided ancient navigators across oceans. Polynesian wayfinders with no maps but memory read the stars as paths across the sea. Each constellation rose in a rhythm, a compass written not on paper, but in the living sky. In Mesopotamia, priests measured eclipses, tracing cycles of sun and moon, believing that such celestial rhythms revealed the secrets of gods. In Greece, philosophers mapped the heavens, seeking to understand the geometry of creation itself. The Mayans carved their calendars in stone, aligning temples with solstices, with star rises, with cosmic return, and we, who come so long after, look up still. We see the same lights. We tell new stories, yet beneath each new story lies an old one, still flickering, still remembered by the stars themselves. It is whispered that the stars hold memory not only of what has been seen, but of what has been lost. A ruined city may crumble to dust, its name forgotten, its songs dissolved. But if once long ago its people lifted their voices upward, then the stars were listening. Every prayer, every chant, every whispered vow beneath the night sky became part of that eternal archive. Think of Mohenjo-Daro, silent now, its streets abandoned. Once torches burned and music drifted through the air. Where did those sounds go? Into silence, perhaps, but also upward into the sky that listened, into the stars that still shine above those ruins. Think of the temples of Angkor, swallowed by forest, their carvings fading under moss. Priests once sang beneath their towers, aligning their rituals with the heavens. Though the forest silences the stone, the stars remember. Think of all the fires lit in all the ages of humankind. Each flame flickered beneath the open night. Each was mirrored by a star above. Each moment, no matter how small, was seen, was recorded by that endless library of light. Some believe the stars themselves are made of memory, that the light we see is ancient, traveling across oceans of darkness to reach our eyes. To look upward is to look into the past, to see not what is but what was. A star burning now may already have died. Its light, though, continues. Its memory endures. Perhaps this is why we feel wonder and also melancholy when gazing into the night. For we are always looking backward, always seeing ghosts of light. And yet these ghosts do not frighten us. They comfort us. They remind us that nothing truly vanishes, not entirely. The echo remains. The light continues. It is said that the stars are marked by the moon. The moon, that eternal wanderer, moves across their library, casting its pale glow like a lamp in a vast archive hall. When it passes, shadows shift. Constellations dim, but the stars endure. The moon forgets, but the stars remember, and so we stand beneath them, as did the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Incas, the wayfarers, the dreamers, the nameless forgotten ones. We stand where they once stood, we breathe as they once breathed, and above us the same eternal witnesses keep watch. Perhaps the stars hold not only what came before, but what may come again. Some traditions speak of cycles, of worlds that rise and fall, of ages that turn like a wheel. The stars, unmoving to the eye, see it all. They burn through the rise of kingdoms, the silence of ruins, the return of voices, the rebirth of dreams. Whispers tell us, as long as the stars shine, nothing is truly lost. Every voice, every city, every forgotten name is preserved, written in light across the dark, and so the emotional journey softens. We have looked upward in wonder, walked through myth and memory, listened to civilizations whispering beneath the stars. We have seen how the heavens remember what earth forgets, how the constellations are more than symbols. They are witnesses, sacred, silent, eternal. Now the story folds into stillness. The sky continues to shimmer. The stars do not speak in words, yet their silence is filled with meaning. We gaze upward, and in their light we feel both small and infinite. Small because we are only a moment. Infinite because we are part of the memory that the stars preserve. Perhaps it was never meant to be understood. Perhaps the stars are not there to give us answers, but to hold our questions, to keep them safe in their eternal light. And so the image closes. The night sky, vast, silent, shimmering. A sacred witness, a library of light. The stars remember what we do not, and they will remember still, long after we are gone.